welcome back to my long lost channel. I have not recorded since my last and first video, which was 2-3 years ago, but I do have an explanation. Okay, so in the past 2 or 3 years, I don't know, I have to go back and see what my last video was, but it's been a while since I recorded. I have been reading, however, I haven't made the time, because I've had the time, but I haven't made the time to actually record a video because I got promoted from my other job, and now I'm a supervisor for an organization working with children with special needs. I have a brand new nephew that we welcome to the family. We went through this entire pandemic. Mind you, I started teaching as a kindergarten teacher, as I said before, during the pandemic, so that was crazy in itself. Thought I was going to take a break for summer school. I did, and I decided to work summer school for both jobs, and I did that. And I just picked back up on my ESL teaching with my Chinese students. So I have been busy. I said, you know what, whatever books I read from this day until the end of July, I'm just going to do a July wrap up. And then before I read anything in August, I'm going to do an August TBR. So today I'm going to record 2 videos. The books that I've read the half of July and the books I plan to read in August. So without further ado, let's get into my very first July wrap up. First, but not least, I read The Last House Guest. The title alone and the front cover, I looked at it. I love thrillers. I love mystery books, not knowing what's going to happen, psychological thrillers. That's kind of my niche. So I was like, you know what? Let me pick it up, see what happens. And it's, if you are a fan of like the Gossip Girl, One Tree Hill, 90210, Pretty Little Liars, you get the gist, teen dramas, it pretty much unfolds in that order. The scene is set during summertime in Little Port, Maine, where you have a group of young kids that get together, well, teenagers, they get together at like a beach house and they're partying, everyone's kicking back, having a good time. You've got best friends Avery and Sadie texting right up until a few hours. Sadie stops replying. The police show up to this beach house. They approach Sadie's brother and pretty much tells him, your sister has been missing for a few hours and we've just found her body. You know, she's dead. We found her body. And from that point, the story kind of time jumps from when this party took place, I believe in 2017, to now the current future in 2018. Sadie's death was actually ruled a suicide. So a year later, her best friend Avery is now finding all of these different clues and indicators that maybe her best friend's death was not a suicide and that someone was actually involved and that Sadie was actually murdered. So reading this book it started off really slow. I enjoyed it. However, what I was expecting to happen didn't really happen. I didn't fall in love with it. There was not a lot of character development besides the first character. You don't really know anything about anyone else. A bit on the dry end for me. I'm going to give my final review at the end, but like I said, if you are a fan of like Gossip Girl or like the teen dramas, and you also like something with a deep, dark, twisty turn, this might be the book for you. So the second book I read this month was The End of Her by Shirley Pena. And this is not the last time you will hear this author's name in this video. The End of Her is a story of an upscale suburban neighborhood where pretty much everyone knows everyone. Our main family is Stephanie and Patrick. They've just had their beautiful 2 twin daughters who are very colicky. They're babies. So the wife is they're both pretty stressed out already. But then this new woman comes into town, you know, facading as though she's going to buy a house, but later on we find out that she's actually there to blackmail Patrick. Patrick was married before and his wife died. So Erica comes into town and she accuses him that she doesn't believe his wife died the way he said, and she actually thinks that he killed her. But I will give my final rating, The End of Her. So the third book I read this month was The Sunday Girl by Pip Drysdale. And this honestly came out of nowhere. It was not on my Goodreads list. It was not on my TBR. And I don't know. I went into Barnes & Nobles. I was looking around for some books to read. I saw this. I saw the cover. I saw the yellow ribbon and the blue background. And I was like, this might be good. And our main character is Taylor. Taylor is dating this horrible guy named Angus, and their relationship is very toxic. Nevertheless, they break up and Taylor is devastated and she wants revenge. She wants to blackmail him. She wants to get him back for breaking her heart and making her fall in love with him in the first place. and she goes a little too far. Probably further than anyone ever would. I mean, usually you break up and you just move on, but no, not this girl. So, Sunday Girl. So, the fourth book I read this month was actually a reread, and I wanted to reread it for a while now. I hadn't read it since probably back in undergrad. When you're reading a book for the purposes of completing an assignment, you read it to digest it, but you're not reading it to really feel all the feels. So that's what I did this time. I went ahead and I reread it, and of course that is Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and I loved it the first time, loved it the second time. If you have not read it, you should definitely check it out. It's a young becoming of age novel of a young girl named Janie. We just go through different relationships, different peaks and valleys, and she learns different lessons along the way, mainly about love and the love of herself. That's all I'm gonna say, because this is not a plot driven novel. It's something you have to read, and you just read for it to unfold, and you know, the relationships that she endures and the lessons that she learns is something you need to learn and read along the way. But I still will give my review of it in the very end. But I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm going to say by the fact that I've been just smiling the whole time I gave this review of Their Eyes Are Watching God. You got to read it. If you haven't read it, read it, read it, read it. So the fifth book I've read this month of July was Never Have I Ever. This book was on my TBR from a year ago. I read the cover, of course. I looked at the title, and I was like, I need to get that book. Never Have I Ever by Jocelyn Jackson. This book pretty much takes place again in an upscale suburban neighborhood. What is it with me, this like upscale suburban neighborhoods? But it takes place there. And you've got this group of housewives that get together for a book club, and they discuss the books that they've been reading, how we're doing right now. But this week is a bit different because a woman comes into town, Angelica Rue. She's pretty new to the town, has a young son. She turned book club into this game of Never Have I Ever. And if you've never played Never Have I Ever, pretty much you all kind of sit in a circle, and everyone just goes through different scenarios and phrases of things that they've done or haven't done. If you have done it, like for example, let's just play, okay? Never have I ever had an affair with someone else's husband. If I have done that thing I just said, or that, accusation, I would put my finger down. And everyone just, I guess, knows your dirty little secret. If you have not, then you would take a shot. That's pretty much how you play. So that happens to book club. This game goes a bit too far, as she starts giving accusations and scenarios for things that connect to our main character, and it gets her thinking, does she know my deep dark secret that I've buried from 15 years ago? And all the while, we don't really know what the secret is. We don't find out until like mid book what the secret is, but it kind of keeps you on your heels. It ensues from that book club night, and later on we find out that Angelica Rue wants to blackmail our character for her secret. She doesn't want anyone to know, right? You're in this suburban neighborhood, you're a housewife, everyone thinks, you are the best mom, best wife, outstanding neighbor, you have the best parties. No one wants to know your deep dark secret. So in terms, Angelica is going to blackmail her to keep her quiet. But our main character, Amy, is just not going to stand for that. She's like, you know what? I'm going to go tit for tat and toe to toe with you. And that's what kind of makes it interesting. The only problem I had with this book, which was the biggest problem of all, is it did not live up to my expectations. I'm pretty sure listening to this from the beginning, it sounded as though, oh my God, that's a really good book. It fell short for me. I'll give my review in the end of Never Have I Ever. All right, like I said, this was not the last time you were going to hear this name. And of course, Sherry LaPena, someone we know. So again, Someone We Know takes place in an upscale suburban neighborhood where everyone knows each other. All the neighbors know each other. All the kids know each other. Everyone just kind of knows each other. They go to the same schools. Most of the husbands work at the same jobs, or they have the same occupation. And most of the wives tend to be housewives. You've got this one teenager who has been sneaking into people's houses, not to steal anything, but he says he's practicing his hacking skills, and he wants to get into their computers, and he does, and he wants to send some playful emails, and he does. However, this is all fine and dandy until one woman in one of those houses goes, Oh, well, not goes. She dies. Okay, she is murdered, and she's murdered down the street from the occupation of another character. So everyone's just up in suspicion as to how this woman died and who killed her, because evidently she was murdered. Okay, so now the story goes on from one family, the mother of the teenager who's been sneaking into these houses. Her husband actually becomes a suspect, and the mom makes it worse because she writes letters apologizing to all the people in her neighborhood, saying, sorry, my son broke into your house, he didn't take anything, She doesn't put her name on it, but it makes everyone more suspicious anyway. So now we're reading this, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. How did this woman die? Who killed her? How is her family implicated? Why is the son doing that in the freaking first place? Who were the culprits with him doing this? And it just turned out to be a boiling hot mess. Okay, Shari LaPena books always turn out to be a boiling hot mess in a good way, as in everyone in that neighborhood is just scanty and they're always doing something. Like, I can't with some of these characters, like, they're entertaining. The detectives are going to find out anyway. They implicate themselves by lying and just making it worse. It's all the entertainment I need to sit over here, because it's been raining a lot, and just read and laugh at them all. But Someone We Know by Shari LaPena. If you haven't read it, you need to pick it up. I won't give my review yet, because my rating yet, because I have one more book to review, and then we'll get into the numbers. Okay, so last but not least, this might be a shocker to some of you. This book was on my shelf. I'm not gonna lie, it was on my shelf for some years. It was hyped out of this world. It is now a TV show, and when things are hyped, I instantly, instead of me being super excited to read them, I go in with like my spectacles. I'm getting ready to critique every single little thing, and I need to find out why everyone is saying this book is the absolute best. It's so awesome. This series is great. So for that reason, it was on my bookshelf, because I just didn't want to bother with it until I was ready. Now that it's a show, I'm pretty sure it's probably like in season 2. I don't even know. I haven't watched the show. I'm not going to watch the show until I've read all the books in the series. But I had to just wait until the hype was over. Like, anyways, let's get to it without further ado. And of course, that was The Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'm pretty sure if you're a fan of this book, you're probably looking at me like I have 3 heads right now. But listen, it is completely justified. I do not care. When something is overhyped, I am not about to just read it, because I'm going to be let down. And I hate when I'm let down. And especially when the book is so pretty. Like, it makes it all the more worse. Like, I already have a red and black book section on my shelf. So if I had to toss it, I just wasn't ready to toss it. But anyways, The Six of Crows is a story of, in this land where there are Grisha, people who can perform magic, and then you have regular people, but they also, like our Six of Crows, have their own skills that they're really good in. Like, you got Jasper, who likes the knives. You got Inaj, who's also the Wraith, and she's really good with knives and climbing walls. You've got Cass, who's the mastermind. You have a lot of characters, okay? And they are hired on this impossible heist to free or prison break. That's what I want to say. They're hired on this impossible heist to prison break this guy, Bo Yelger or something. Listen, I don't know. I'm going to put it right here. But they're hired to break him out of the ice court. He's arrested after he gets some kind of potent chemical, I guess. Let's say that it's a chemical that these Grisha can drink, and it enhances their magic in such a way that they become almost invincible. Almost, it's too hard for them to be defeated. And of course, you've got soldiers and guards who don't like this, who wants to be the opponent or on the opposing side of someone who can kill you in the snap of the fingers. I mean, it's kind of like the Thanos reaction. You could kill or erase 1,000,000 Thanos, like, would you? So that's pretty much what happens in this book. So he's arrested, and they want to break him out because you've got Van Eyck, who wants to use that potent chemical to his advantage, but he cannot do that because he does not know how to make it. So he needs the maker to be broken out of prison and brought to him so that he can use that for whatever he so chooses. And overall, it's a really good book. I did enjoy it. I just took so long to read it because I didn't want to read it due to the overhypedness of it all and the show coming out and people talking about it constantly. I wanted a moment where it was quiet, the world was silent, and I wanted to read it and get my own opinion, and I did. So, The Six of Crows. So, let's get into my ratings, and I'll kind of give my honest opinion on the books. I kind of give a little gist of it all in the beginning, but I want to give my honest opinion on it. Back to The Last House Guest. I rated this book a 3.5. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. The story was a really strong plot, like I said, with Sadie and Avery being friends and Sadie being found dead, her death being ruled a suicide. It was a really strong plot. But I just feel what happens with the time loop, with her death being ruled a suicide in 2018, no one really cared about it in 2018 except Avery. That's kind of, it makes it hard to believe that Avery was actually one of the suspects, because if you were a suspect for a murder a year ago and suddenly everyone has forgotten about the case, why would you intentionally go around looking for clues about your friend's death? I don't know. It just unraveled in a very weird way. Let's just say that. A lot of things that were supposed to be pieced together to make sense didn't really come full circle. You have a lot of issues and things that were brought up that were not resolved. You have a lot of characters and a lot of people that were there the night of Sadie's death that you kind of hear about once or twice, and then they kind of just a year later they're off in a whole new state doing their own thing, and they want nothing to do with Little Port, Maine. So for that reason, I rated it a 3.5. If you do like mystery and you like reading about like someone died who done it mysteries, this would be the book for you. Like I said, it wasn't bad. I did like the book. I just did not love it. Next, I'm not sure this is the second book I talked about in my overall video, but yeah, they're gonna be rated out of order. The Sunday Girl, I would rate this book a 2. I rated it a 2 because I did not like the toxic relationship. I thought was going to be entertaining, and I thought it was going to like make me laugh, make me cry, make me feel something. I only felt annoyed. I felt annoyed at the main character. I felt annoyed at how she kept pushing and pushing and pushing out of relationship, out of love, at longing for something that just was not there. In the middle, toward the end, even halfway in the beginning of the novel, some of her decisions don't really make sense. For that reason, I gave it a 2. It just did not feel realistic to me. It was a good plot. It just built up, I guess, too quick, and then the fall was a little too long. Their Eyes Are Watching God, obviously, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5 because, I mean, it's a becoming of age novel. Like, how can you dislike a becoming of age novel? It's about life, and hello, we're all living it. None of us are perfect. And it teaches you just about life and love and longing and learning who you are and what love is for you. And it's written in such a way, like you just feel like you're there. You feel like you're in the South. You're back in the times. You're understanding the hardships, the work ethic, and the amount of dedication it takes to build everything from the ground up as an African American in America. Like, this book overall was just, it was the creme de la creme back then, and it's the creme de la creme for me now. The End of Her by Shirley Pena. I loved this book, but I did rate it a 4 because of the ending. The main character's wife, Stephanie, the entire time we're pretty much in her mind when she's learning all these things about her husband, when he goes on trial for this accusation that, no one really believes, but he does it anyway. And it makes you, you have such faith in him, right? It builds you up to believe all these things, which makes a really good mystery novel. But then in the very end, the wife makes a judgment call that it came out of nowhere. No one saw it happening. It threw me off a bit, and I didn't agree with it. I didn't like it. I did not like the ending. I loved the entire book, but I did not like the ending. So for that, I gave The End of Her a hard 4. Maybe 4.2. The next Shirley Pena book I read this month was Someone We Know. And again, I rated this book a 4 because of the ending. I love Shirley Painter books. I cannot say it enough in these book reviews. You guys are going to hear it again because another one of her books is on my August TBR. But something about the endings, like the books build up so good. They're juicy. You're right in the thick of it. The action is packed. The person who done it was the least expected, the least talked about. I just did not understand why it was that person. I understand her motives, but we didn't know her because that character was the least talked about. They're going down or them getting caught. I did not care. It was just like, okay, it was them. So for that reason, I gave Someone We Know a 4. Never have I ever. So I rated this book a 1. This one was the most anticipated. Like I said, I had it on my shelf for an entire year. Okay, I was super excited about reading this book. I almost pre-ordered it because I had read the description. I don't even know if I was just shopping on Amazon or on Audible or what the heck I was doing, but I found it. I loved it immediately. I was going to pre-order it, but then it came out. I went and got it, and I just put it on my shelf, and it was sitting there because I did not want it to be over before I actually read it because I just knew it was going to be good, and this book was not good. I did not like it at all. It took way too long to read. It took way too long to get to the point. And then when I got to after this whole book club scene and her finding out the secret and telling her the secret, and once we got to the secret and Angelica Rue is trying to blackmail Amy, keeping her hush hush, you finally find out what the secret was. Guys, you find out what the secret is, and the secret wasn't even that big. It was like, just tell the people in your community, just tell your husband. Like, the secret was like, yes, it's something, but it wasn't that big of a deal. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal. So once you learn what the secret is, it kind of makes no sense. The blackmail, all of that makes no sense, because I'm just like, that's all you've got? That's what I've been reading about this entire time for some like weak plot, some weak blackmail story? Like, there's a bunch of scenes and dialogue that's happening that adds nothing to the story whatsoever. Our character is unsure of every single thing in her life. The story continues to go on and on and on about how she feels and what she went through in her childhood. And I'm just like, what the hell does this have to do with blackmail? So I gave this a 1. Maybe I'll read this again. I'm not gonna read this again. And now I've got 6 of Crows because this is the first book in the series and I did enjoy it. I'm gonna give 6 of Crows a 5. I'm gonna give it a 5. I mean, would it even realistically make sense to give a book that's a series like a 2, but then go on to read the next one? No. So I'm gonna give it a 5. I did enjoy it. I did love the characters. I did love the character development. I wish there was more character development. I will say that. I think the book focuses a lot on Kaz, and then towards the end the author is pushing really hard for this relationship between Kaz and Inej. So they start to give you a little more information on Inej and where she comes from in her life, because of course the book leaves off on a cliffhanger. Inej is taken, and now that, I guess, is what I'm going to be thrown into for book 2. But I wouldn't care if that relationship was not there. But because that relationship came so late in the book, I can tell that it was thrown in so late. So I care that she's taken, but not as much as I should. So for that reason, I give it a 5, but I am saying I wish there was a lot more character development, not just for the purposes of Kaz and Inej's relationship, but also the other characters. I want to know more about Jasper. I want to know more about Matthias and Nina and what is it, Wylan. I want to know more about the other characters, even Pekka Rollins, you know, the bad guys. I love knowing about my bad guys. I love knowing their motives and why they do the things they do. That makes it more deeper for me. I'm able to, and the scary thing for me is when I'm able to connect with the bad guy, then it becomes hard because you have this conflict within yourself as to, if this were you in this story, honestly, would you be one of the 6 of Crows, or would you have been a bad guy in this town or in this world where it's kind of survival of the fittest? But I gave 6 of Crows a 5. overall, guys, for this month, honestly, for me to have so many different jobs and different things that I've been doing, I'm really proud that I was able to finish and read and do this video on my 7 books that I read in July. Like I said, I'm going to do 2 videos today. My next one is going to be in August, TBR, the books I plan to read for August, and I'm super excited, so please look for that video. If you have any comments or responses or anything or feedback about the books that I've read, any reviews, anything, if you just want to talk to me, look down in the description. You know, my Instagram and everything is there for my other social media accounts, and also my writing blog. But I be from writing blog. But anyways, if that is all, then let that be it. Subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you again soon.